Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead, back on Porch Time today. Guys, we've got a beautiful day. It's cold. I got a lot done though. It's pretty windy, so I'm hoping the wind don't affect the video. Guys, there's a lot going on in the world today. And it's almost so much that it's mind-riddling to see how fast things are progressing at the point in which we're at. But if we're not careful and we focus on everything that's going on, the enemy will have won. And I'm not in the business of making the enemy win. I'm in the business of being first. I'm in the business of being on top. The scripture says in Deuteronomy, in the blessings of obedience, Christ said, I will make you the head and not the tail. And that's where I'm interested in. I'm interested in being the head, not the tail. So, rather than focusing on the things that are going on in the place across the water over here, or the sickness that's taking place that's causing all this uproar that we're facing, and you notice I'm using certain words right now rather than using the words. And there's a reason for that, because there's an agenda out against YouTube about using those particular words, and so I'm being careful. But guys, I want to talk about, for just a moment, the simplicity of the days that's gone by. What has happened to the simplicity of life? What happened to the simple days? You know, those of you who are, I'm going to say 40 years old or older, maybe 50 or older, you remember, if you'll sit down and stop and think, you remember what it was like to live a simple life. Since the age of technology has come in, supposedly technology was going to make life so much simpler, but it's done everything but that. It has made our lives so chaotic, so hectic. We're all in a rat race. If the phone rings, oh my God, I got to answer the phone. Oh, I got a text. Oh, I got a notification. I got this, I got that, I got, Our mind is constantly never at rest. Remember when you used to hear the phone ring? And you'd say, oh wow, somebody's calling. Man, oh gosh, we got a phone call. You was excited to have a phone call. Because nobody had phones hardly. A few people had them in their houses, but the original first phones were the party lines. And then your neighbor could listen in on you. I mean, that's the honest truth. Okay? I remember when the first cell phones came out. They were in like a briefcase looking thing. And they were kind of heavy, had a battery, and your phone was connected to it. And we thought, man, we're moving up in the world because of the technology, Because all this stuff has destroyed the peaceful life that we live. This off-grid cabin that I'm sitting at right now, Wanda and I built this. I'm just going to be honest with you. We needed a place to unwind. But this has become a studio. Because whether you know it or not, a lot of the videos that you see are shot here. Now, you may not recognize it because of some of the background scenes that we put in and stuff like that. You may not recognize that we're actually at the off-grid cabin. Very few of our videos is ever even shot over at our other house anymore. So the off-grid cabin has become a studio. But now we have no electricity over here, so the only thing that's going on over here is the shooting of videos. Like now, I'm sitting on the porch of this off-grid cabin. But when Wanda and I shut the day down, and we look at each other and say, let's go to the cabin tonight. We come over here, there's no electricity. The only electricity that we have over here is battery powered electricity. We have battery generators over here. Now we have a 99 watt one, we have a 150 watt one, we've got a 300 watt one, we've got a 500 watt one, and we're actively looking for about a 1500 watt generator right now so that we can actually power everything in the cabin that we need. And that's only going to be like, that's going to be all the lights and a couple of plug-ins if we have a little appliance or something that we want to put over here. We're actively looking for an old-fashioned ice box. If not, I'm going to have to build one of some kind because we don't want refrigerators running over here. That's the thing in the off-grid noise. We're trying to keep this place simple so that we can enjoy life without having the noises that go on in life. I did a porch time here a while back. We're being trained by noises. And when we go to our house, I've mentioned this to you guys, we hear the refrigerator running. We don't have a unit in our house to heat it or cool it. We have one to cool it, but we don't have one to heat it. But your hair dryers kicking on and running. I mean, the pumps running over there. There's the fans. I mean, there's noises everywhere. I mean, if we shoot a video in the house, like for Patreon, a lot of times in the morning I'm doing my studies, I'll shoot a video in the living room. We actually have to take the echo fan off of the wood heater and put it in another room because the camera will pick up the clicking of the noise in that echo fan. Just something that simple. Over here, the only thing we have running is a light bulb. And you know what? You don't know how much you've lost until you're at a place where there's no noise in the house and everything is simple and quiet. And by 7:30 to 8 o'clock when we come over here at night, we are so sleepy we cannot hold our eyes open. We go back to our other house at 10 o'clock at night. We're still sitting there working because the computers are going, everything's up and running. We're doing this, so Wanda's in the kitchen. We're doing, everything is just a mad rush. And then we're like, oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock, we got to go to bed, That's why I said, I got to get up at 4 something in the morning. And I'm not going to have but 6 hours of sleep or something. Which is, if I get that much, I'm lucky. But that's the point I'm making, guys. What happened to the times when we could just do what I'm doing right here, right now, and just sit on the porch? I'm sitting here looking at the garden on the hill over here. I have the tubs out in front of us here, the container garden. I have the cold frame, hotbed, whatever you want to call it. We just planted all of our English peas. We've got our trellising system mostly up now. I'm looking at all this beauty around me. I see the smokehouses right here behind me. The birds are all over the ground. I throw some bird seeds on the ground out here. The little wrens and the little yellow looking birds and all, they're all over the place here. And even though I'm talking, they're not running. They're not flying away. There's squirrels all out here hopping on the ground right here. I'm talking. They're used to my noise now, my voice. They don't even pay me any attention. I can almost walk right up to them. We've got deer tracks all in our garden right here. The wildlife is here. I'm looking at green grass all along my field right here, this deep. 6 to 8 inches deep, all across my field right here on the terrace rows. And I'm looking up in the tree limbs here. The trees, I see the buds beginning to swell. There's so much I can see right here. My little magnolias all out here I planted. I showed y'all in one of my other videos. We've got tons of other trees. We got videos coming up on trees that we've planted. There's all this stuff right here because we were looking for the simple life. Now occasionally you'll hear noise. You got the aggravating neighbors over here with all their deer hounds. They call them deer dogs. They're mutts. They're in a pen. They've never been out of the pen in 2.5 years. They've never been out of the pen. They just stay there and bark all the time. We have that noise that we contend with. And, we got occasional neighbor on a four-wheeler or something like that, or the kids in the pool back here at the neighbor's house. But other than that, I'm listening to the wind in the pine trees here behind me because the wind's blowing pretty hard back here. And I hear the whistling of the wind. And that's a peaceful sound. Wanda and I stayed over here the other night during the rain. It wasn't a heavy, hard rain. It was just a steady, light rain most of the night on this metal roof. And in our bedroom, I've almost completely soundproofed the bedroom. I think once I get all my walls up in there, it will be soundproofed. We were asleep. I woke up around 4 o'clock, which is what I normally do. And when I opened the bedroom door and come out, I could hear the rain on the metal roof. I closed the bedroom door back and I listened real quietly, and I could just barely hear the little patter of rain. And I was like, wow, that's such a comforting sound. And I came on in the living room and built the fire in the fireplace. And I sit there in my recliner and laid back and just watched the flames in the fire flicker and listened to the pattern of the rain on the metal roof. And the next thing I knew, I was waking up and the fire had almost went completely out. There were just a few coals left, and I was like, whoa. You know, it's just the simplicity of life, guys. When we actually come across it and we actually have it, our bodies just fall into a mode of relaxation. The thing about it is, with all that's going on in the world right now, it's all to bombard our minds. 5G technology, all this stuff is to bombard our minds. And there's so much I'd love to talk about. You know, I do over on Patreon. I've got tons of stuff over on Patreon about what's going on in the world, about what's going on in the government, you know, what they're doing up there, what the government is saying about YouTube, and all this kind of stuff. I have all that stuff's over on Patreon, and I'm going to keep it over there. I'm probably never going to bring it over here on YouTube because there's rules now that's being made by our government against YouTube. And it's not the deal with the children. It's not COPA. It's way worse than that. You know. So I've got that over on Patreon. I'm going to leave it over there. I'm not bringing it over here. If you want to know about it, you'll have to go to Patreon to see it. The only thing that I'm going to be moving from Patreon over here is going to be the cabin building videos, but they're way past. I mean, the cabin's way beyond that point. You know, the patrons get to see what's happening right away, but it won't make it to YouTube for months. But none of the in-depth stuff I'm not going to bring that over here because I can't run the risk of having my channel pulled. I'm going to try to keep Deep South a quiet, simple channel about gardening, you know, some of the events in the world that I can talk about. Porch Time, I'm going to try to keep it upbeat as much as I can. And just, we're going into the gardening season. We're going into the season of planting fruit trees and gardening and raising livestock and things like that. I think I'm going to keep Deep South more pointed in that direction and keep Patreon for world events. You know, I have shot videos with other YouTubers that, you know, if they want to put something up, that's fine. I may mention it over here, that you can go to their channels if I want to, but over on Patreon, I will put the links to all the stuff that I've done over there, and the people over there will get to see those. But the thing about it is technology is taking away our simple lifestyles. You know, it's kind of like Alabama. Alabama has a song out. My car has, talking about a car, it goes fast and yet it has nothing to do. I mean, there's all kinds of things out there in the world that we're running a rat race for. I lost my next door neighbor in a car accident this past week. She left behind a husband and several small kids. Just a freak thing. I mean, next door neighbor, life is too short, people. There was a beautiful family now without a mother. My next door neighbor. And it just, Wanda and I came up on it right after it happened. And those are sad times. But if life wasn't so hectic, maybe we wouldn't be on the run all the time. Wanda and I, after we come up on the accident, we've kind of made a pact with ourselves that, you know, we're just not going to be running to town all the time. With this illness that's going on in the world and all the stuff that's happening with that illness, we've decided that it might be best that if we sit down and refocus and recheck our priorities and see if we can't do a better job of what we're doing without having to go to town as much. Because this world is crazy and people are not paying attention. They'll just run right over you, you know, and there's accidents everywhere we look. People are having accidents, and it's all because of technology. We're all in a hurry. We've all got to be somewhere at a specific time, and we've all got a phone, or most of us do. I got one, but it's never with me. But we all have phones. They're always going off, and we think we have to answer everything right away rather than waiting and taking care of it. And I really appreciate one of the last videos I've done. A lot of you people told me, you said, Danny, my phone may ring, but I answer it when I get a chance to. I really don't pay attention to it. You know, if it's a number I don't know, I just block it. You know, if I don't see who it is and I don't know the number, I don't call it back. And when I do call it back, it's after I've finished all my work and everything. Guys, that really caused me to have a good feeling. I was like, wow, there's still some good people out there. You know, I have people who fuss at me because I don't have my phone with me all the time. But you know what? I lived the biggest portion of my life never having a cell phone. Never having a phone, period. I traveled this whole country with no phone. You know, I would leave and go on jobs and wouldn't be back for days and days and days and never contacted home because there were no phones. I've been on hunting trips and be gone for a week and never called anybody because there was no phone. I just assumed everything back home was okay, and I figured when I got home, if it wasn't, I'd find out when I got there. Or either if something happened, somebody knew, people knew where I were, especially my family, and they would get a hold to me. So I didn't worry. People back then, we just didn't worry. And when we got in a vehicle to go to town, we wasn't running no 55 to 70 miles an hour to go to town. You know, we just drove along 35, 40, 45 miles an hour. We waved at everybody we seen. You know, you still have some people who do that, by the way. I mean, I wave, and there's a lot of people when I wave at them, they look at me like, the world does he want? You know, they don't even, you know, nobody. I still meet a few older people who wave when you go by, and that sure does run a good feeling over me when I see that. But guys, what has happened to the simplicity of life? As a younger man, I used to come home from work. I set my lunchbox down. If it was the summertime, I picked my rod and reel up and I went and got in my truck and I went to a lake. I had leases at lakes and stuff like that I paid. I'd go to the lake and I'd fish until after dark, come home with a mess of fish, clean them, we'd put them in the freezer. Come the weekend, we'd have a fish fry. You know, I mean, I know there was one time I had over 300 bass in my deep freeze filleted. It was over 3 pounds apiece. You know, we had big fish fries. Wintertime come around, you know, I'd get out and hit the woods, and especially early in the season, get me a good mess of squirrels and come home and make some squirrel gumbo or squirrels and gravy and biscuits, you know. Deer season come around, I'd take hunting trips. I'd go, you know, kill me a couple of deer, come home, man, we'd cook up some backstrap, you know, have the neighbors over or whatever, we'd cook some backstrap up, a family, and I got these big old black kettles, the big old kind. I had a tripod system in the backyard here, man. All the grandkids and everything come over, and I'd pop popcorn in that thing, or I'd fill up one of them with gumbo, and we'd make a big old pot of gumbo and rice, and we'd all sit down and just sit under the shade trees, and guys, we just had a good time. But as everybody got older, and the grandkids got older, and the family got older, everybody got phones, everybody has vehicles, and now nobody comes around anymore. Nobody talks to anybody anymore. Everybody's doing their own thing, caught up in their own clique, and life is just nothing like it used to be. You know, it's all changed. And that's a sad moment for a nation when it comes to a point and its people are too busy for one another. You know, I've mentioned to y'all in some of the other videos that I watch a lot of videos from like Bulgaria, Romania, places like that, Slovakia and stuff like that. And I listen to the old people. The old people sit and talk about how it used to be, how they knew everybody in the neighborhood, how when somebody, you could hear people singing all the time, how that life was, everybody had a horse, a mule, or a donkey or something, and everybody was just happy all the time. And I noticed that on these videos, they talk about that, the older people do. The sad part about it is the younger generation, since computers have come out, they don't have a clue about what it's like to not be in a rat race. They don't know how to relax. They don't know what it means to relax. To them, relaxing is doing something that you're very active with, something you're very strenuous at, you know, going to a concert, you know, boy, we're going to have fun, and we're going to the beach, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Nobody knows how to just sit down and relax anymore. That's why the scripture, that's the reason the Lord himself says, God says, be still and know that I am God. The problem today is, if the Spirit spoke to many of us, we wouldn't even know it. Because we're in such a rat race, we couldn't hear the Spirit if it did speak to us. And that's the biggest problem I see in the sector of the world today, is that the Spirit can't talk to anybody anymore because nobody stays still long enough for it to speak to them. And without the guidance of the Spirit, guys, life is just one big chaotic mess. I personally try to sit down, and I do. I get up in the mornings at 4 o'clock. Sometimes I get up at 3, sometimes at 2. And I'll get in my chair and I just sit. I'll build a fire if it's the winter time, and I'll just sit and watch that fire burn. And actually, to be honest with you, try not to think about anything. I try to give the Spirit time to just talk to me. Sometimes I get things I don't want, and sometimes I have the greatest peace falls over me. But it's all good. And that's where I like to live, is in that zone of my life. The scripture teaches us for all things work for the good of those who know the Lord. And I try to keep that motto in my life, even though some things that happen don't seem very good. But all things work for the good of those who love the Lord. It's hard to say that when you lose a spouse, because I have. But you know, on the other side of it, God makes you a lot wiser. You're a lot more humble. You realize the frailty of life. And it makes you appreciate things a lot more. So guys, as we sit here and we talk, I want you to think about the simplicity of life. I want you to think about bygone days and how simple they were. And how easy life used to be. Remember, you went to the grocery store, you just picked up groceries. Everybody used to grocery shop on every Friday or Saturday afternoon. Everybody went and bought groceries there. Well, you didn't worry about contaminated food or whether food had GMOs in it or, you know, anything else like that, or MSGs or anything. You just went and bought groceries. You like, usually a husband and wife and family all went together sometimes. I know my mom and daddy would travel out of town to go to a particular little store about 45 miles north of here because they always had such good deals. And Grandma and Grandpa would load up in the car and everybody went together. They all bought groceries and come out of there, and I can remember Daddy saying, gosh, we spent $25 this week. I don't know what we're going to do if groceries keep going up. And I'm talking about we had a pile of groceries. $25 now won't even get you one bag of groceries. Matter of fact, Wanda and I went to Walmart the other day to get some almond flour for me because of my gluten issue. And we come out there with a couple of bags of almond flour and we done spent $25. Now that's pitiful. But it's where we're at. And I'm not sure it's a happy place anymore. I don't know if we can ever get back to where we were. I don't think that our kids will ever know anything about the simplicity of life. I believe we could take them and put them in the backwoods of nowhere and raise them on a farm. And at some point, they'll fall prey to the hectic lifestyle of this world because, hey, we did. Let's just admit it. So stop and take it easy and be still like God says and know that I am Lord. Thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.